Great, thanks a lot, Tim, and thanks for the opportunity to present. This is obviously going to be a pretty quick run through in 10 minutes, but I hope it's a good introduction to the company, what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve, and what the work programs and expected results are going to be over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. We're a fairly new company. We listed just on a year ago, had a very successful IPO. Raised $8 million at 20 cents, opened at 53 cents on the first day, rushed up to 59, and I think we finished the first day at 41. Since then, we've been very active out on the ground on our two projects in the Eastern Goldfields, and that's where I'll spend most of the time talking about today, the Gidgee JV and the Glandore project. And then we've got a number of other sort of early stage opportunities in the Eastern Goldfields, Murchison and the Gascoyne. We've also got ourselves a nice strategic land position in the Bangamore, which is an emerging nickel copper PGE province on the back of the Chalice discovery. And I guess a key thing for an exploration company, especially a junior exploration company, is that we've got people that have seen and done things before. So, a track record of discovery, development and production. So just moving on to the corporate overview slide. I'm a geologist, exploration geologist with coming on 30 years experience in Australia and North America. I founded Dore Minerals back in 2009 and took that from a $4 million IPO to a $300 million company with two mines in about 6 years. On the board with me is Marion Bush, who's a geologist with a similar sort of experience, and she ran a TSX-listed gold company in Guinea and West Africa and built a small mine there. And Terry rounds out the board with non-technical experience. As I said, we only listed last year, so a very tight capital structure, 55 million shares on issue, market cap at 21 cents of about 11 million, with sort of around $5 million in the bank. So very, very modest EV of $6 million for the projects that we've got. I'm the largest shareholder. I've been to quite a few projects into the IPO. So I've definitely got skin in the game, and I want to make this a great success if I can. Next slide. To use a real estate analogy, I believe that we are the cheapest house in the best street. There's an old saying in gold exploration and mining, if you want to find gold, you look under the head frame. Well, we're not exactly under the head frame, but we can see plenty of head frames from where we are on our projects. So our three main projects at the moment are the Gidgee JV, just north of Kalgoorlie, Glandore, which sits about 40 k's east of Kalgoorlie and just north of where Black Cat are planning to build their new processing plant. And then our third project in the Goldfields at Randalls, a project that we're just waiting to get granted, is right next door to Silver Lakes, Maxwell's and Cockeyed Bob gold mines, and their haul road from Aldous runs right across the middle of our project there. So we're in a great location with proximity to a number of gold mines and processing plants. We'll move on to talk about Gidgee now, the next slide. So this is Gidgee. There's a Google Earth image, and this just shows you how close we are to Kalgoorlie and the famous super pit in Mount Charlotte. Just to the east of us, you've got Kanowna Belle. Just to the north of us is Paddington, which produced 4 million ounces. And just off to the west of this picture is Kundana, which Evolution has just sewn up 100% ownership of. The thing we really like about this position is the Barara Shear Zone, which is a major regional structure, which starts off to the southeast at Golden Ridge, runs up through the Barara deposit, which is being developed by Horizon Minerals, goes through our project and does a nice big jog, and then heads up to Paddington, and then keeps going further up to where Bardock and King West and other people are. So this is a major regional structure. When we saw the project and saw the dilational jog there and started looking at historical drilling, we realised it was very, very underexplored and would be a great flagship project for the company. So next slide. This is where we spent most of our time recently. We went out and did a couple of air core programs. We had immediate success with our first program, getting a hit of 2 meters at 7 grams in an air core hole. We followed that up with 2 further programs, and we've now defined this 2 kilometre long prospect called Marylebone, which sits in this Barara Shear Zone and is cross-cut by some north-south structures. When we started exploring this area, we recognised that the geology, the structural setting and the scale looks very, very similar to Paddington, and I'll reinforce that a couple of times. We've got a 2 kilometre long air core anomaly with lots of plus 1 gram hits. It's open to the northwest along strike, and it's virtually untested at depth at the moment. The air core drilling we've done only really goes down to about 60 metres. So the next step will be to flesh out the air core anomaly a bit further and then to start testing it with RC drilling for the first time. So we've got further air core drilling and then RC drilling, and we're waiting on a number of results from some recent drilling that was done in July and August. You can see how close it is to the highway. The highway actually sort of runs across the northern end of the prospect, and it's open to the northwest on some tenement applications that we're waiting to get granted at the moment. So we move on to the next slide. This is what really excites us. So this is Marylebone and Paddington at the same scale. So you can see that the geology, which is a sequence starting from the west of the black flag beds, then the green rocks are mafic volcanics, then the purple rocks are ultramafics, and then sediments again on the northwest, is exactly the same sequence as they see at Paddington. The Barara shear zone runs through Paddington, does a little kink, and is cross-cut by some north-south structures. That's exactly what we're seeing at Marylebone, and the scale is exactly the same. So that pit outline of that pit at Paddington produced about 4 million ounces at sort of a 2.5 gram head grade. So we're very excited that we might be able to find something, you know, half or even a quarter as good as Paddington. That would be a great opportunity for the company. The other thing that's worth mentioning is that Paddington had a 30-metre depletion zone over the deposit. So when we started looking at the previous drilling at Marylebone, a lot of the previous drilling was angled holes that were less than 40 metres deep. So that meant that most of that drilling wasn't getting through that depletion zone, which sits over the top of Paddington. So effectively, that meant that this whole project was unexplored. Next slide. So as I said, we've got a really nice land position. It stretches about 15 kilometres from end to end. You know, we're bounded on one side by KCGM or Northern Star, and we're bounded on the other side by Zijin, who own the Paddington deposit now. We are just about to have the remainder of our tenements granted. So up to now, we've just been working on that sort of central or southern portion where you see the black outline. All the rest of the tenements now will be granted, hopefully in the next couple of weeks. That includes a couple of interesting targets, like the one called the Jog, which sits down in the big dilational jog to the southeast there, and also a whole series of targets along the extension of the Barara shear. So there's about another further 10 kilometres of strike of the Barara shear that hasn't been tested. And this slide shows all the historic drilling, but we've taken out anything that's less than about 50 metres deep. So amazingly enough, this is effectively a greenfields project sitting on Kalgoorlie's doorstep. So we're very excited about the opportunity here. We've already had some success at Marylebone, Railway and Piccadilly. Marylebone at the moment, it's looking like has a potential to turn into something really significant. And we're very excited also about looking at the ground on those newly granted tenements when they get granted, hopefully in a couple of weeks. Moving on to our second main project, which is Glandore. This sits about 40 kilometres east of Kalgoorlie. As I said, it's about 8 to 10 kilometres north of where Black Cat are about to build their processing plant for their Kalgoorlie East operations. What we liked about it is that there's a layered mafic complex, again, very similar to what you'd see at Kalgoorlie, and that runs north-south and it bends around a granite. Most of the project is underneath a salt lake called Lake Indalguda, but where previous workers had drilled, especially on the east side of that granite, there's a 2.5 kilometre long zone of really nice air core hits. And then there was some limited diamond drilling done back in 2005 by Harmony, and they got results up to 8 metres at 22 grams in shallow diamond drilling. Since then, there was a big gap in the work that was done. Anglo Gold Ashanti got hold of the project in 2017, did a couple of diamond holes, decided it was a bit too small for them, and we managed to buy the project 100% for $100,000 as part of our IPO. What I really liked was the upside on the east target, but also the mirror image on the western side of the granite, which has effectively not been tested for about 2 kilometres. There's a couple of nice air core holes on the land just down to the south, where there are hits like 3 metres at 5 grams, and these are Western mining era holes from the late 1980s. So we've just completed a small program of air core drilling on the land, that's the yellow dots, and we're just about to start drilling on the lake next week sometime, and we'll basically test that western target with air core drilling, get that up to the same sort of level of detail as the eastern target, and then we aim to get out there with a diamond rig and start working out what we might find. In comparison with Gidgee, I think Gidgee's got the better location, but Glandore's got the better existing results. But both of these projects have opportunity for a significant discovery in close proximity to infrastructure. So the next slide is basically a bit of a summary of everything else that we've got in the company. I talked about Randalls before, so I won't say any more about that. We've got an underexplored greenstone that sits between Deflector, which is the mine that I built with Dore, Golden Grove and Rothsay, so not far away from where James was talking about. We've got a project called Whale Shark up near Onslow. We've just done some MMI sampling. We're waiting with bated breath on the results from that. And then we've picked up this land holding in the Bangamore, which sits between the Yilgarn and the Pilbara. And this is sort of follows on from the Chalice discovery, looking for these craton margin style nickel copper PGE projects. And this was an area that was recognised by Geoscience Australia at the same time they highlighted the southwest Yilgarn, which then resulted in that Chalice discovery. So we've got a nice land position there. Mount Vernon's been granted. We're expecting a couple of the other targets that get granted in the next few months. Next slide is really just a summary of what we've done this year. We've been very busy. Obviously, most of the focus was on Gidgee. We're now starting to do work on Glandore as well. We want to have those projects sort of tick-tacking back and forth while we're drilling and waiting for assays. And then we've got a whole heap of other little projects to work on in the background as well. So in summary, we've been quite busy since we listed. Only, just coming up to a year. We've advanced multiple targets at Gidgee and looks like we might be onto something at Marylebone. We're just about to start a big program at Glandore. We've got ourselves in a nice position in the Bangamore, and also, been up north to do some soil sampling up there. I think we've got the key ingredients to create create value through discovery. We've got people that have done it before. We've got some great projects. We're well funded, and importantly, we're out on the ground doing the work. So it was a very quick rundown. Please check out our website. I think the website address is on the next slide, but happy to take any questions and happy to keep the market informed about our programs going forward.
Thanks, Allan. You picked up that Glandore asset fairly cheaply. How did you pick up Gidgee?
So Gidgee was actually pegged by one of my old Dore geologists. He put together a little private syndicate about 18 months ago. And I went to the Explorers Conference down in Fremantle last year, and it was been a bit of a happy hunting ground, and bumped into him, and I told him I was putting together a new IPO, and told me about the ground, and we started looking at it and thought it looked like a good land position, so negotiated the deal. And as it happened, talked to the Anglo guys at the same conference. So out of that conference came our 2 flagship projects, and then I sort of wrapped a whole heap of other early stage things around it.
And Gidgee as a kind of a Paddington lookalike, what's this kind of scale and timing of a drilling campaign to determine whether it's commercial?
Yeah, so we're waiting on some assays from our 4th phase of air core drilling. We've been really busy. We've done about 25,000 metres of drilling there so far. That's got the scale, the sort of drill spacing down to about 150, 200 metres by about 50 metres. So we're almost there in terms of density of air core drilling. But the next thing to do is some systematic RC drilling, which will help us really work out the stratigraphy. We think we've got an idea of the geology now, but I reckon it's probably going to take sort of 6 to 12 months to work out the size of it, the scale, and if there's anything economic in the bedrock. At the moment, everything we've discovered is really in that sort of weathered material at the top of the bedrock. The real game changer will be economic bedrock intersections. So you really want something sort of 20 to 50 gram meters to be able to say, okay, there's something here that might be economic. The great thing though is where we are, we're not looking at having to build our own plant. If we find something relatively small, it can just be incremental tonnage and ounces for any of the players that are around us. So that's the great opportunity of that land position. You've got lots of options about how you advance the project.
And you have lots of experience out there. How has the landscape changed recently? It's obviously extremely busy. How do you compete for resources as well?
Yeah, it is busy, and James sort of alluded to that as well, talking about drilling. It's hard to get drill rigs. The lab turnaround time is very long at the moment. So investors have to understand that, we're doing our best, but it's a very crowded landscape. We've been able to get drill rigs as well. Part of that is relationships with people, but also part of that is where we are. For example, we did a little RC drilling program. We got an RC rig off Top Drill who were going to go up to Hemi up in the Pilbara, and we had a brand new rig straight out of the shop, not even dirty yet. So we said, well, how about you come out and do a couple of holes for us? We're 10 k's out of town. If anything breaks, then you can run it back to the shed and fix it before you send it to the Pilbara. So that's really working well for us. We've rented a house in town, so we can be very flexible about our programs. And we've been able to sort of grab rigs that are passing on the highway and, get them for a week or so. So part of it's relationships, part of it's, being in a great location. So it's busy. It's very busy.
And how do you focus your assets on all those opportunities?
Yeah, well, I guess, really, I always sort of try and have a bit of a mix of things in a portfolio. You have the bread and butter projects, if you like. So that would obviously Gidgee and Glandore would fit into that category. And then you have some more things that are sort of high risk, high reward, So things like whale shark, where you might be looking for a Javier on or something like that, and the Bangamore stuff. Those projects there, really the strategy for pretty much anything outside the Eastern Goldfields is to test the concept, get some proof of that concept, and then potentially see if we can find a JV partner, a big brother, especially in the case of the Bangamore, that would be talking to one of the nickel producers with a bit more, deeper pockets and say, hey, we've proved the concept. How about you come in and help us advance it, and we'll keep a bit of skin in the game. That would be the idea there.